Arias. As an Illinois Department of Natural Resources employee, he worked at Mermet Lake, which is, I believe, the first employee of the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission.
For a full time.
First full-timer.
Yeah, worked on the Natural Areas Program. He named the natural divisions of Illinois, was the state botanist, the first and only state botanist, I think.
Yeah, it
And
didn't
since
replace me when I retired.
Since his retirement, he's been very generous with his time giving public programs like this. So welcome, John, and thanks for driving all the way from Metropolis.
Oh, okay, you're welcome. Yeah, one of the tasks they gave me when I was the first employee of the Illinois Nature Preserves Commission was to develop a system of classification so that we could have a comprehensive, ecologically comprehensive state nature preserve system. And so I was given the task of developing natural divisions of Illinois. And there's 14 of them in the whole state, but what I'm going to talk about tonight is just the natural divisions of Southern Illinois. And basically, the Ozarks over here and the Mississippi River bottomlands are another division, the Shawnee Hills, and then the coastal plain down here along the bottom. So that's about what we're going to cover. We'll start up here in the northwest, up at Fults Hill Prairie, and work our way down. This is a Google Earth image just to show you the connection between Southern Illinois. See, the green is the forest environment. There's the Ozarks. And here's the interior low plateau here. And then this is some of the coastal plain uplands in the land between the lakes there. And all of that stuff feeds into the Southern Illinois. We are truly a crossroads of biodiversity. So I'm going to start off, like I say, up in the northwest corner and come down like this. Then we'll go across the Shawnee Hills, and then we'll pick up this. And I've been asked to talk about this because it's it covers a lot of the native plants. And whenever we come across the plant that I think has landscaping or horticultural applications, I'll mention that. Of course, you'll look at it and you'll say, well, that's a good plant to use. And then there's some here that I think should be included. So after we get through with the natural divisions, I've added on another 15 or so species that I do think have some application in landscaping too. So this shows the area of Fults, and you can see this is the Mississippi floodplain. It cuts right through the Ozarks right here. And this, a little bit of Ozarks on our side. This is up north. Fults Hill Prairie is in here, and here's Kidd Lake Marsh. These are both areas that represent, this represents the Mississippi River Bottomlands Division. And here's you can see these hill prairies here. I think this is our biggest one here. This is the parking lot. This is the Bluff Road. Prairie du Rocher is down here. Go to the town of Prairie du Rocher and just start up to the north on the Bluff Road, and you'll come to the Fults Hill Prairie site. And this is a karst plain. You see these sinkholes up here? This is all underlain by limestone, lots of caves in here, and some of them have ponds in them with unusual fauna in there. So it's quite diverse. The area that the state owns is, the nature preserve is something like this. It's large. It includes some of these ponds up here as well as coming down here. And then we do own a big part of the Kidd Lake Marsh, which is an old channel of the Mississippi River in that area. And if you park at the parking lot at Fults Hill Prairie, you'll see a stairway leading you up to the prairie. The prairie is quite a bit above the roadway, and you might catch a view of the Dutchman's pipe vine along the base of the bluffs. And one thing that's in here is the yellow lady slipper, but the Ozarks have a small flowered species. The flowers are about 1.25 inches long for the petals, for the slipper. It's just about half the size of most of our yellow lady slippers here in Illinois. And the Flora of North America still didn't recognize it as a distinct variety. I don't know why, but So it doesn't have any name individual from the other, but it's one of the things that is only in Illinois, right here at Fultz area. And you can see out across, there's the Ozarks on the Missouri side. There's Kidd Lake Marsh, remnants of it out here. And this is part of the prairie that has just been burned. That's why you don't see the old grass on it. But some of the real unusual plants here, this is the crested coral root orchid. It is one of the saprophytes. That lives off the fungus just like a fungus will, off of the humus in the soil, and it is much bigger than the other common coral root orchids that we have in southern Illinois. We have others, but the crested coral root is one of the unique ones there. And I like this close up because you can see the purple lines on the lip that lead the bee back to where it picks up the pollen and conducts the pollination and so forth. It's quite an interesting wildflower. I don't know, it's on the endangered species list, so I don't guess you can go out and use this one in your yard. Here's the bluff edge at Fultz and some more of Kidd Lake Marsh in the background. You wouldn't want to fall off of this. You can see it's all limestone here. And this is the slender heliotrope, Heliotropium tenellum, which is only known in Illinois, in the Ozark, and up in Pike County a little bit too, in that part of the flowers that have come in from Missouri. Now here are some plants that are kind of interesting. The stick leaf, this Mentzelia with the yellow flowers here and here. The leaves will just stick to you. They're covered with and they're rather showy, and this is the only place we have them in Illinois. And the same with the Missouri Black-Eyed Susan, has these real narrow leaves that are quite different from the leaves on our Black-Eyed Susan, and it's also common at Fultz. Here's I'm sure you know bedstraw or galium that we have here. You can stick it to your clothes and they'll stay there and so forth. But this is the little stiff bedstraw, a little annual that's right at the edge of that cliff where there's just that half-inch or a quarter-inch of soil, and that's Galium virgatum, the stiff bedstraw. It's only known here in Illinois. Now, this is the only area we have scorpions in Illinois, is at Fultz Hill Prairie in this area, and it's very interesting. And the same with the Great Plains rat snake, although it gets beyond, it goes up through the Metro East area as well as being in the Ozarks here. And another one, the flat-headed snake you see beneath a lot of the rocks. As you pull up the rocks and you're looking for a scorpion, well, you might encounter one of these flathead snakes as well. So herps, amphibians and reptiles and plants are very important in designating the natural divisions. Birds and mammals that just cover much wider areas than that aren't tied to the substrate, and that therefore they aren't good for deciding where to draw boundaries between different ecological regions. So this is the narrow-mouthed toad, also likes to live under these rocks up there. So as you move further south down the west side, many of you may have been to the Mill Creek area. I know it was just recently purchased by a group from the Metro East area. And then Piney Creek, this is a state nature preserve. This is an area that is this is part of the Shawnee Hills that were overridden by the glaciers during the Illinois glaciation. It melted back 120,000 years ago. And when it melted back, the plants that came in many of them were from across the river from Missouri for some reason. So it's quite different from the rest of the, the rest of the Shawnee Hills. And in fact, there are a lot of the examples I'll show you of some of the glaciation effects on this area coming up. First, I think we'll look at Piney Creek, and then this is publicly owned now, but by a preservation group up in the called Clifftop, I think, up in the East St. Louis area. But here's Piney Creek.
Heartland Conservancy.
Pardon?
Heartland Conservancy.
The Heartland Conservancy. Okay, I couldn't remember their name. This is the Piney Creek. There's one of two stands of shortleaf pine that's native to Illinois. It's in the Piney Creek. You can see them growing along some of the cliffs, and so you can see the rocky bed of the creek. This is the main bed of the creek, and in 120,000 years, it has not eroded down to level. It has no floodplain of soil or anything. It's just pure bedrock at the bottom. So my guess is it'd take another 120,000 years to get it down to where you'd have actually a floodplain of soil. And so it's kind of unique in that regard to see a stream that is still hasn't eroded its way down to base. Here's some reproduction of the native pines in there. Here's one of the rarities there, Bradley spleenwort fern, and quite a bit different from most of our spleenworts, but it does have that dark stipe at the base of the leaf, but it has pinnatifid divisions on the leaf, the pinnules here. And another thing here, Harvey's buttercup has come in from across the river. This is a very small leaved buttercup, but with large flowers. We have another couple of them here in our native. They have little bitty, they're small leaves like this, but they have really very small flowers. And so Harvey's is limited to this area and a few other areas. If you go up the Kaskaskia River, you can find this. We found it in a couple of places in the upper Kaskaskia River drainage. So here's one of the really neat things there, glacial diversion. Everybody's heard about Apple River Canyon up in northern Illinois where the glacier diverted it. Well, we got glacial diversion streams right here in southern Illinois. And this is in the Mill Creek drainage. And it's amazing, there's a large valley there, obviously, and yet the creek cuts down through solid rock. And that's what we have here. This is where a glacial diversion of that stream cut this gorge right through. The stream is going right through there when it's running. So the Mill Creek area is very well worth a visit to see some really unique things. It is where the vicinity of the small World Pogonia orchid, federally endangered, once occurred, has not been seen since 1992. It was the last time one of them came up. And I think it's probably safe to say it's no longer known to occur in Illinois. But I wrote the article for kind of telling the whole story of the discovery and the eventual disappearance of this thing in the Erigenia, the Journal of the Illinois Native Plant Society. I wrote a complete article on that when Dr. Julius Swain, who had taught at the Rend Lake College over here, and he was the one who had discovered it and everything. After when he died, I wrote that. It kind of is a remembrance to him. And rattlesnake plantain orchid. Somebody thinks the leaf there looks like the outline of a rattlesnake head, I think. And here's another one. This is the large flowered flower of an R. There's a common smaller one in the Shawnee Hills, but this one in the Ozark, this is Tillandsium calycynum, an Ozark larger flowered species. And as you go on further south, then you come to the Pine Hills. And there's another thing, like up at Fultz we had Kidd Lake Marsh as a little bit of the Mississippi Bottoms environment. And here we have the LaRue Swamp as a remnant of the Mississippi Bottomlands Division. This was the Big Muddy River, used to meander down through here. And here's the Big Muddy River now going out. So this is cut off, but it makes wonderful swamps. This all belongs to the Shawnee Forest, and they do a great job of protecting it. And then here's the Pine Hills, which also contain the shortleaf pine, many more of them than the Piney Creek does. And so we'll take a look at this from a lower elevation. Here's some of the shortleaf pine, and looking down on the Mississippi floodplain, you can see some of the wetlands down there below. Pine warblers, they're limited to pine trees, but they're all across the Shawnee because there's so many pine plantations been planted here. and they're not that rare. In fact, I think I took that picture at Lake Glendale. That's a good place to see them. But over here, the hooded warbler is really most abundant in our Ozark Hills. And this kind of hard to get pictures of them. And we were driving down the Pine Hills Campground Road. It's on the back side. It's a ravine. And Martha said, well, there's a hooded warbler calling right there. We stopped and got out, and he was sitting there. See this here? He's been battling another male hooded warbler, and he just won the battle, but he got a little bit of his feathers fluffed, but he was sitting there bragging that he had won, and he just sat there, and I got a good picture of him. And the zigzag salamander has this red stripe down its back, very common at the Pine Hills. And the same pickerel frog comes just down the Mississippi River, kind of. And you don't find it in the eastern part of the Shawnee Hills, or I haven't found it in that area. Here's an American toad just trilling in the springtime. And here's one of the rare things. The spring cavefish, or blind cavefish, has got a membrane growing over top of its eye. It lives back in, at least partially, back in springs. It occurs all across southern Illinois, not just in the Ozarks, but also in the Shawnee Hills. And the chipmunk's more common there than it is in most of southern Illinois, along the Mississippi Bluffs. Someone just pointed out to me the other day how the chipmunks are on the decline in central part of the Shawnee Hills. They don't occur, never have occurred in historic times in the eastern part, like over around Bellsmith Springs or places like that. But they were in the Wildcat Bluff area and so forth. And I don't know what's going on there. One thing that we've done, we've introduced a lot of cats, and cats are able to kill chipmunks. And there's something that the chipmunks did not have to deal with until we came along. The bobcats probably didn't waste a lot of time chasing them. So that might be what's going on there. Well, and here's the glades at Pine Hills, and then of course some pine up here. And in the ravines we have the beautiful celandine poppy. Now this one has really, we've got them growing along the north side of our house. They really do good as foundation planting. They need shade and cool location. Some of these, the lady slipper orchids have become very rare in Illinois now, but this is one that I did photograph it here in Shawnee Hills. The green trillium, I think, is now on the endangered list in Illinois, or threatened. This is a very restricted species. Occurs about 50 to 75 miles either side of the Mississippi River from Quincy, Illinois, down to Cape Girardeau, Missouri. That's it, the range for the whole species. And so you can find it in Pine Hills and even in Giant City Park, and then on the Missouri side likewise. But it's very restricted, but very peculiar with big, long green petals. And then in Pine Hills, speaking of ferns, interesting ferns, here's the black spleenwort. Looks like the ebony spleenwort, except the little leaflets are just opposite each other, whereas they're alternate in ebony spleenwort. And then this is the real rare one. This is the limestone maidenhair fern. If you know your ferns, the maidenhair fern likes sandstone, our typical one here. But there's one that occurs throughout Asia and into North America and northeastern states and New England states that lives only on limestone. It's bigger. It's actually a tetraploid. Anyway, it's doubled its chromosome numbers, and that makes it like limestone instead of sandstone. And don't ask me why that is. But there's the main populations in New England. There's one population here. There's another population in British Columbia, of all places, and one up in remote parts of Quebec in Canada. And then the rest are all in New England. So this population here in the Pine Hills area is disjunct by almost 1,000 miles from any other population of it. So it's something we need to be aware of and proud of. Well, here's one I think has horticultural applications, or landscaping applications, and that's our wild azalea, our pinkster flower. It's Rhododendron roseum. I think it's available for sale in the nurseries, and it's quite common in the Pine Hills and other parts of our Ozark Hills. Here's one of the glades up on top. This has some really, right along the edge of this outcrop here, there's what they call Northern Illinois satin grass, but Muhlenbergia cuspidata, it's the plains muhly. It's a grass from the Great Plains that finds enough drought and lime and stuff to occur right here in the Pine Hills. And here, the Lower Mississippi River Bottomlands Division again. Well, here's the diamondback water snake. And here's another one, another plant definitely that you ought to have in your native plant planting, and that's the copper iris, swamp red iris. It's in the Pine Hills area, the LaRue Swamp area, Mississippi bottoms, but also comes around in the coastal plain bottomlands too, like at Heron Pond. Beautiful wild iris. And Cypress knee sedge is distinctive, and the only Carex comosa in southern Illinois I've ever seen are in the big spring there at Pine Hills. And here's, of course, this is a plant group, so I know you may not be interested in these, but this is the duckweed fire-tailed damselfly. The whole thing is about 3/8 of an inch long, or how little duckweeds are. It's just, you can't hardly see them. You stand at that big spring at Pine Hills and just look, and eventually you'll see something move a little bit. And then you get down closer and you can see this little thing. And it's disjunct here from, I think, the nearest other populations are down the Mississippi Valley, at least in West Tennessee. I don't think there's any more in Kentucky, any in between. So we have some really rare things. And this is something that was once collected there. Price's groundnut, Apios pricina. We do have the groundnut, Apios americanus, which is quite common. Doesn't have this big protuberance on the top of it. And this is a West Kentucky, West Tennessee, and Southern Illinois kind of endemic. And it doesn't occur, we can't find any more of it, but it was once collected near Pine Hills, in the bottomlands part. I took this picture in West Kentucky. So, and then, if you go on down in the Ozarks, then you come to, this is Wolf Creek coming in here, and I'll show you some of the things that are along Wolf Creek, which is very interesting. Here's the barrens on Wolf Creek, but here's one of the things you really want to look for, and that is yellowwood. Yellowwood is you can buy this, you can get yellowwood, in the nurseries as well, but it's very rare. It's apparently gone through what the geneticists call a bottleneck, a genetic bottleneck. It's lost a lot of its genetic diversity, apparently almost went extinct at one time, and now it's just not very adaptable to, it's vulnerable. Ours is killed back by a native fungal disease, not anything rare and introduced. So, but yellowwood it will grow in your garden, in your yard, maybe even better than out in the wild, because these are stressed by drier conditions than they like, I think, and that sort of thing. So, and then another thing that we have one native magnolia in southern Illinois, the cucumber magnolia. It has these narrow greenish yellow leaves, petals instead of the pretty petals, but still, I think if you want to plant some interesting plants in your yard or your arboretum, I would consider getting a cucumber magnolia. It's in the area down there in Wolf Creek Hollow. There's some in that hollow, but there are other places down there too. There's an area, a lot of people have driven the road on top of Pine Hills, but there's another little road that the CCC built called Possum Trot, just west of Elko, that goes right along the top of a little series of Ozark Hills. And you can see a lot of these right next to the road there. I don't know about a lot, but I've seen them growing right where you can see them right from Possum Trot. And that's a place that'd be worth visiting. The red buckeye is also really, it's used as an ornamental right on SIU campus. And you can buy it in nurseries. I've got one plant growing in my front yard. The hummingbirds love it. They fly, it blooms out just when they first come back in the spring. And so I would recommend highly, if you want a native shrub for early times, look into the red buckeye. Here's the big leaf snowbell bush. It's not very showy. It's just so interesting because it's such a rare plant. It's a colonial plant, and it just doesn't seem to produce any seeds. There's one clone that's also been found in Illinois, and it's down in this same area where the yellowwood grows. And amazingly, it's never been found in Missouri before about 3 years ago. And I was at the botanical meeting, and I talked to George Yatskovich, is the one that keeps up with the flora of Missouri, and he said they had found a population of this, and I asked him, well, how big is it? And he said it was about 3 acres. This thing forms dense colonies, and when I found the first ones, I was evaluating natural areas on the Shawnee. I was plowing through these shrubs, and all of a sudden I realized, well, I didn't know what the heck that shrub was that I was going through. And I stopped and looked and figured out what it was, and it covers an area bigger than this room, and it's all one plant, I'm sure. And over there, they may have 3 or 4 plants, he said, but it's more than several acres in one big clone. So it's an interesting growth form, too. Might be worth propagating that in your yard, too. I don't know if you can get that through a nursery or not. And also in the Wolf Creek area, you can see the native cow parsnip, Heracleum maximum, one of the few plants we have in the mesic environment that also grows in Alaska. It just ranges all the way back up to Alaska from here. So it's kind of interesting. And the Penstemon tubiflorus is, of all of our beard tongues or penstemons, it's one of our prettiest and rarest. I would suspect people would use that. Look how it's got this little bitty pair of leaves here, another little bitty pair here, so that the whole inflorescence is kind of like on a stalk above the leaves. And then it looks almost like a little trumpet, more so than the other penstemons that we have. It's a good one to put in your garden. I don't know of any other native ones besides down in the southern end of our Ozarks. And it's just, except that, yeah, and I've looked at some of the prairie restorations in DuPage County out west of Chicago, and they planted in there, but I don't think it ever grew native in the Chicago region. But you can find it in some of those restored prairies in the Chicago region, yeah. So, well, looking at the Shawnee Hills division, there's one kind of an outlier of the Shawnee Hills, and it's Fountain Bluff. Look at this. This is the river. This is the river bluffs of the Mississippi way over here. Here's the big muddy coming down through here. This is the way it used to go through by LaRue Swamp. You know, the same way it's going right now through the Oakwood Bottoms, this big timber tract. But isolated out here in Fountain Bluff are some interesting plants, and I wanted to show you a little bit about. And this is the geology here. See the Mississippi River, instead of, obviously it made this, but now look, it comes and goes to the backside of that, and here's tar rock down here. It just made a new channel through here, and geologist Stan Harris has done a lot of work on this end, and he's proved that the glacier, the Illinois Glacier, slid off the bluffs here and came over, and he's got glacial drift from the corner of this bluff, so that we can be sure that the glacier then, shifted the Mississippi River over to where it is now. We're pretty sure. I mean, this looks like what's happened. So, and there used to be hill prairies on here, but Bob Evershead that wrote the Hill Prairies of Illinois, and before he retired, he took me up to see one of his hill prairie that he studied up there on Fountain Bluff. I'm pretty sure it's not there anymore. But on the north end of Fountain Bluff, you can see the round-leaf bellflower. It's we have the summer, the tall bellflower, Campanula americana. That's all our big summer wildflower in our woods out here. It blooms in July. But here on the north end, you get this as more of a northern relic, and so if you want to put that in your garden, you can say, yeah, it's a native Southern Illinois wildflower. And sessile trilliums are there. On the north end of Fountain Bluff is just fabulous for early spring wildflowers. You go into Gorham, and you can find a road that takes you right back over to the north end of the bluff. And there are just a lot of things there. Allium, this is an onion, Allium tricoccum. They call it ramps down in the Smoky Mountains. People dig it and eat it there. And you'd never know it was an onion because it looks like a lily. But if you crush the leaves, it smells like an onion. It is an onion. And if you come back in June, this is what you see. The leaves are all gone, and there the little onion flowers come up in their umbels. After all the evidence that the leaves were ever there is long gone. And there's a lot of big white-flowered trillium there. And there are a lot of timber rattlesnakes on Fountain Bluff. If you get up on the bluff, you just really got to be careful where you're walking. It's one of the most abundant. And I was looking for, there's one other rare plant that was once found there. The American barberry has been known from there. And I was looking for that, and that's what I found. Okay, so we're shifting across the Shawnee Hills now. We saw that Fountain Bluff is an example of the Shawnee Hills that's kind of cut off. But here's Ferncliff, Round Bluff at Ferncliff, and here's Lusk Creek Canyon and Martha's Woods. Here's Cave Hill, or Old Stone Face, and down here, of course, is this is the Little Black Slough area, and down here is the Cretaceous Hills area. We'll kind of work our way around here. Okay, if you go to Ferncliff State Park, there's an area that a lot of people, it doesn't show up so good on here, but see these these sandstone glades here, and you can see the outline of the bluff. There's a little mesa called Round Bluff there, and it's a dedicated nature preserve. A lot of people go over to the big canyon area and walk up to the waterfall, but really the rare plants are over here. And so you go by the lake, and then you take this road. There's a road that comes right up here in a parking lot in there. And one of the typical plants of the greater Shawnee Hills is the small flowered alum root, and it blooms in the fall. It's not very showy, but the leaves are, you can't walk the Shawnee Hills, the greater Shawnee Hills, without seeing the leaves of this thing. It's just so common. Here's the south side of Round Bluff. It has the best population I know of the small flowered of an hour. It's a lot smaller than the one we saw over there in the central section of the Ozarks. And here's the little rock spike moss. The only place I've ever seen it in any abundance is at Bell Smith Springs. Not Bell Smith Springs, Jackson Hollow. Jackson Hollow is an area where the loess soil deposition is the thinnest. The loess coming from the Mississippi thins out, and there's some coming from the east, from the Wabash, and so there's the least amount of loess right there, and that's where it is surviving. The loess basically makes a blanket of soil that is kind of rough on some of these rocky glade plants. Here's the six-line race runner in some of these sandstone glades in the Ozarks. And on some of the cliffs you see the cinnamon fern and black chokeberry. There's still, I think, a plant of this growing on the Old Stone Face Bluff, but the biggest population used to be around Bluff. And I I don't know. I didn't go back there for a long time. I've got collections in my herbarium from 1968. And I know I saw them in the early 70s, but they're gone now. They've all died out. We had a terrible drought in 1988. I don't know if any of you all were around then, but I think the drought of '88 is what did in that small world begonia orchid, and it also, I think it did in all of the black chokeberries here at this place. But yeah, I think you'd still be justified in using that. If you're looking for a shrub that you want to plant for as an unusual thing, you can plant that in your as a planting, because it certainly is native to southern Illinois. There's still, I think, a little bit over Saline County. And then the fire pink. Fire pink is restricted to basically along the bike trail north of Vienna up to, up to the north side of the Shawnee Hills, and also on Round, for some reason, on Round Bluff. No, it's not anywhere else in Giant City, in Ferncliff Park, though. Then you go to Lusk Creek, and you see, this is Lusk Creek Canyon, this hairpin bend here. And then this is an area we call Martha's Woods here, I call that. And so Lusk Creek forks right here. This is the main fork of Lusk Creek, and this is Little Lusk Creek coming up this way. And here's what Lusk Creek Canyon, the fork, looks like. A lot of relic northern plants in here. We'll see some in a minute. Here's one that has gone. The yellow honeysuckle. There were two stands that I knew of in southern Illinois, one at Bell Smith Springs and one here at Lusk Creek Canyon. And they both died out in a real dry year, I don't think more than 6 or 7 years ago. So when you stop to you think, well, you won't see these things come and go in your lifetime, that it's a gradual process. But these things that are they're in cool northern habitats are dying out as the climate is getting warmer. And you just watch them go, But I don't know if you'd want to use that, but honeysuckles are pretty good for planting. And if you could buy some Lonicera flava, the yellow honeysuckle, in a nursery operation someplace. Offer hollow reed grass, that's this one here and this one here are the Calamagrostis inspirata. These other things are panic grasses that are growing in with them. But these two they're really they're an Appalachian species in a few ledges in southern Ohio and Indiana and Illinois and in Missouri. And we have them at Lusk Creek Canyon and at Bell Smith Springs. And these closed gentians, they're just getting ready to bloom now. And they're kind of a relic on these cool north-facing ledges. And these were at Lusk Creek. And this is the other thing. A lot of this, there's one of these that's commonly planted in gardens. The orpine, they'll live forever. But this is our native one, the American orpine. And it blooms in the fall, and it's at Lusk Creek Canyon. And I don't know if anybody's used it in landscaping, but it could be. It certainly has that potential. And it's got succulent leaves like the other members of its family. It's disjunct all the way from the Appalachian Mountains. It just comes all the way out here, and it's in southeastern Illinois in our Shawnee Hills. And I showed it to Raymond Athey, a friend of mine who eventually wrote a flora of the state of Kentucky. And I was showing him this. There's some of this at Old Stone Face too. I was showing him some of it. And I said, you might have that on the Kentucky side of the river in Livingston County, because the land looks a lot like this. And darned if he didn't go find it. So he got a state record for Kentucky of that plant. And this spotted wintergreen, you could plant that too, and it looks like a terrarium type planting, I don't know. But this thing comes and goes. I don't know what's going on with it. It's an eastern plant. Me and my brother have 90 acres in the Shawnee Hills, just 3 miles east of Lake Glendale, and we just for deer hunting. And I was walking through there one year, And there it was. It was just, it had seeded in, a bird, I guess, brought it in, and it was there for 8 years, and then it disappeared. And I've seen it up by Martha's Woods, and I don't know if it disappeared or not, because I never did go back to look for that one again. But anyway, it's you could call it a southern Illinois native. And here's one, the barren strawberry. This ledge is above Hayes Creek on Shawnee Forest land. These yellow flowers are the flowers of it. And the big drought in 1968 killed it out. It no longer occurs in Illinois. And I don't know if it's evergreen. These leaves stay green all winter. It might have some horticultural, uses. And then here's Martha's Woods. And Martha's my wife, but we were really trying to save the Lost Creek area from being dammed up back in '68 and '69. And that was the reason the Southern Illinois Audubon Society chapter was founded here in Carbondale, and we were charter members of that. And we had Dan Malkovich, who has published a magazine called Outdoor Illinois over here at Benton. He was very much involved in this, and I said, well, he was publishing all this thing about how great Lush Creek Canyon was, and I said, well, there's this stand of virgin timber over on Little Lush Creek that's really got huge trees, like this big old beech tree. And so he said, well, if you write an article about that, we'll put it in a magazine. And so I had to have a title for the article, so I called it Martha's Woods. But Martha, it's really remote. And Martha walked all the way back in there with me to see that day. And then the Illinois wood sorrel. I don't know if you'd want to include that in any of your plantings, but it's one of the few plants that was actually described as a new species right here from Southern Illinois. And it's the only plant that I ever described as new to science by myself. I described another one with Dr. Molenbrock, but this is the only one that I'm the sole author on. And it's a very interesting wood sorrel, much larger leaves and larger flowers than the common weedy ones that you see. Well, there's a red buckeye, common buckeye hybrid at Martha's Woods. I don't think this picture is it. I can't find my picture of that, and it's so remote and hard to get back into Martha's Woods that I haven't been back in years. I need to go in there in the spring and get pictures of that hybrid tree that's in there, which might be something somebody might want to start from cuttings and do some propagation on too. I don't know if anybody that's got that hybrid tree. Bishop's Cap is in Martha's Woods and a few other places in Pope County. There are other counties down there. Here's our one, we have a lot of irises. We have 4 wild irises in Southern Illinois, native ones. We got one wild introduced one too. But this is a dwarf crested iris. You see the cresting on the petals, these bumpies. Our other irises don't have cresting. And this is an upland, a dry habitat. This is where you could plant in your upland woods or in a drier place in your landscaping. And it's throughout the southeastern corner of Southern Illinois, of the Shawnee Hills area and the coastal plain area. Spider lily. I believe it or not, you think of this as a lowland swamp species because you can see it along the trail at Heron Pond, but if you go to Martha's Woods, right in that same area, you can see it along with that iris right there at Martha's Woods. And the wood frog, with it's got like a black mask, a very common species of the eastern mesophytic forest, but very rare in Southern Illinois, or rare anyway. And then Cave Hill and Stone Face is part of the Shawnee Hills too. These are Mead's milkweeds here, to show you the habitat that occurs in. And this is the way it looks. This is federally threatened, I think, or endangered, I don't know. Anyway, it's a tall grass prairie endemic that we used to have. It was first described from central Illinois prairies, but they're all gone up there. I saw it in a prairie remnant along a railroad track in Ford County, but then the farmer plowed it up. And Hales corydalis, this is in the Barrens up on Cave Hill. And same with this black huckleberry. Looks like some of the other little wild blueberries, but they has this reddish flower. This is a stone face. This is once seen at Stone Face, according to Dr. Molenbrock. I've never found it over there. Silene ovata, the ovate leaf campion, a very peculiar looking plant, recently discovered as a native in the extreme eastern end of Hardin County. And then the same with this Virginia saxifrage. I think if you had a little rock garden, Virginia saxifrage would be a good thing to put in it. It's just a kind of a neat looking little plant. Of course, the purple coneflower, this is Cave Creek Glade south of Vienna when it's really going good. Middle of June, early June. And you could put some of those in your rock garden too. And the same with the wild blue sage, Salvia azurea. Some of these things aren't showy, but interesting. This is the limestone adder tongue fern. Caves are interesting from the natural areas point, but not to the plant, from the plant point. This is a cave called Brown's Hole. You can see it's just a big cliff going in. I showed you, I don't know, maybe I haven't showed you filmy fern yet. Darn, I need to have that in here. But anyway, we're lowering some guy down in it. This is a natural trap for animals to fall in. And this is back when this is my brother. We were both just out of the service, and we were doing some adventuring. We were getting ready to go down in this cave on that rope. And we thought the better of it, and we came back with a bigger rope. But a friend of mine was going down there, Jack White. Some of you may know Jack. He was an SIU grad, but he lives up in Urbana now. But Jack's a great caver, and he was going down. And I said, well, Jack, he was going down to look for more fossil bones. Grab some of that fern there. Right about here is a band of fern growing all around the inside of that filmy fern. Filmy fern only grows on sandstone. It doesn't grow on limestone. It's a limestone cave down through there, but it's capped with sandstone. That's why it's so much of a trap or a pit. And he grabbed that when he came up, and we couldn't believe it. Filmy fern in a cave environment instead of under a sandstone overhang, which is his typical Southern Illinois habitat. Oh, I don't know how to back this thing up. Oh, wait a minute, I do too. Going the wrong way. Here, I want to show you how we went down in there. It was 60 feet to the top. One of the guys I went to high school, his dad was a roofer, and he had this big long rope that he pulled the tar up on the roof with, and that's what we used to get down in there. There were some experiences in here that I won't relate now, but. And then this is another big cave. This is me and Max Hutchison in a cave over by a quarry at the Hum Y in Hardin County, and we were really working with him. These black piles here are huge piles of, bat droppings. There were like, I forget how many, 16,000 gray bats nested there, reared their young there every year. And we were working with the owners of the quarry to keep them from breaking into it as they blasted. And then it changed hands a couple times, and I think Lafarge has it now. And I don't know whether that stuff is still there or not, but it's one of the most spectacular caves in Southern Illinois. And here's a southeastern big-eared bat, recently been added to the endangered list. I think that the Cave Hill Cave has probably been fenced off now, gated. Yeah, this was just inside Cave Hill Cave. The slimy salamander, there's a lot of the salamanders have to go back to water to reproduce, but the genus, whatever the slimy salamander is, They do not. They're part of, there's a whole family is lungless. They have no lung, they just breathe through their skin. But these lay a terrestrial egg, and she's just guarding it. She's guarding her eggs, and they'll hatch right there into little salamanders. And that's a kind of a neat picture that I got when we used to do cave exploring. And there's a cave salamander too. Well, get down to the coastal plain. I'm running off a long time. But here's Horseshoe Lake, and it's kind of the lowlands part of the coastal plain, and then it comes on around this way with the Cretaceous hills. Some interesting things, and this is Dogtooth Bend. There's some interesting plants in there. But I was over there the other day, and the farmers have kind of drained the area that I was so interested in. But on the island, do any of you know about Nuttall's oak, Quercus nuttallii? And this is the Native Plant Society chapter from Springfield. That's Martha and I were charter members of that society. And after we moved down here, we invited them all down to. This is Guy Sternberg, one of the founders of the International Oak Society, which is meeting about a week from now up at the Morton Arboretum in the Chicago suburbs. Pretty soon. I got the notice. I'm not going to be able to go up there. But Guy he's from Springfield area, and all of these are all, some of these might even be from Southern Illinois, I don't know. John, is that you? Is that you?
Where, in the picture? No.
It's not you? Okay. Looks a lot like you. I couldn't remember who that guy was. And then here's the little dwarf Phacelia that's in there. It survived the big flood in '93. Here's something in that area that would go good if you had a little garden or an area that you could kind of keep damp sand. This is, if you know the rattlesnake master of the prairie, notice the resemblance to the plants. This is Eryngium prostratum. And it's a little dwarf Eryngium. These little flower heads are about 3/8, half an inch long. And it likes sandy seeps. And this is along the cache. And it's in several other places. It used to be around the pond there at Bell Smith Springs. But recently I haven't seen it there. It kind of got shaded out there, I think, at Teal Pond. And then here's, in Chicago, they call this the freeway aster. It's our only annual blue-flowered aster. And it is invading north, coming north as the climate is getting warmer. And it's now in the Horseshoe Lake area and even up to southern edge of Union County, Aster subulatus. And it's native here. It's introduced in Chicago, so they shouldn't even be able to claim it as a native. And then here's Potentilla paradoxa. A lot of things came in on the sand from the 1993 flood when the levee broke down there on the Mississippi. Same with this Vols. This is just interesting to a sage man, Fembratilis vollii. And Illinois coarse frog, he's one of the sand swimmers. He just plows through sand. And so these sandy soil areas down around Horseshoe Lake, you can find that in the coastal plain. But as you go on up the river, then you come to, this is part of the western part of the Cretaceous Hills. This is the new dam they're building at Olmsted. The lock is already finished here, and now they're building the dam across. And this is all the construction area. And this is the Chestnut Hills Nature Preserve, this triangle like this. And unfortunately, it doesn't come out to the road. And we were hoping to purchase additional land there, but the state has put a freeze on buying anything. That land belongs to the Lafarge Company. The old Dam 53 is right here, which rarely they use, and they raised it last Saturday, so it's in operation now, right as we speak here today. But if you go in there, there's native silver bell trees. And that's one everybody ought to have in their yard if they really like to plant Southern Illinois natives. The silver bell has come down the Tennessee River from the Southern Appalachians and spread along. The seeds are carried by the rivers, the Tennessee River and then the Ohio River, and deposited right here. So it's something that would really do good in your garden. The snow square stem, or Melanthera nevia, I put it in here because it has the same distance. It came the same way, but down the Tennessee River. But here we also have dusky salamander. The only duskies that we have in Illinois are in this general area. And they also with it, the two-line salamander. See the two, you can see the difference between it and the dusky. And then the bottomlands of the coastal plain kind of centers. Here's Heron Pond. Here's Wildcat Bluff going along here. That beautiful stand of coneflowers I showed you a while ago is right here at this glade, right next to Route 45. And there's a good glade right here on Wildcat Bluff, another one out on this end of the Wildcat Bluff. But anyway, Heron Pond has got a lot to offer, and here's the boardwalk there. A lot of wildlife there. A couple of years ago we had nesting hooded mergansers there. This is the female trying to lead us away from her hole, and there's the yellow-throated warbler that nests there high up in the cypress trees. And here's the broad-headed skink male and breeding. I wondered, how do they get out there on these trees? They run around like squirrels. And I saw the duckweed on his back. The sucker swam out there. I don't know how he got there. Here's the sponge plant, and that was its flower. But the swamp roses in general are great for your landscaping. You know, we got one climbing rose. This is the swamp rose for wet habitats, and we have a couple of pasture rose and some of the other roses for your dry prairie habitats. So wild roses are one you'd want to use. But on the boardwalk, I think it's about the prettiest wildflower that you see on the Heron Pond Trail is the wild rose, swamp rose. And you see these. You see cross vines. They're in the Bignonia family. Bignonias are the trumpet creeper, the cross vine, and even in the catalpa tree. They're all in that. All the Bignonias are woody. Tubercle orchid, we have wild orchids, and it's pretty much limited to the coastal plain. It's a variety. There's another variety of this. It's in the prairies, sandy prairies in central Illinois, but quite different from it. The three birds orchid. Here, the log fern, Droptera celsa. This is the only place in Illinois for it is along around Heron Pond, along the Lusk Creek. Along Cache River. And cottonmouth. The bird-voiced tree frog, another real interesting animal. It's southern from the swamps, you know, and you say, wow, it came up the Mississippi embayment and got here that way. And then you realize that as hunt as they do have in Missouri, they've never been able to find this frog in Missouri. I think it might have migrated northward along the Tennessee River Valley and got into southern Illinois that way, and as opposed to coming up alongside the Mississippi. And you can tell it's got this beautiful whistling call like a bird, but he's got this dark spot right under his eye too that is kind of a giveaway. Mole salamanders. They look like the smallmouth salamander, but with a flat head and with white on top of their tail. There's a juvenile there too. I took this picture right from the Heron Pond Trail. Two river otters swimming along right next to the trail. I study a lot of mussels, so this is a lilliput mussel. Mussels have to have a fish become the parasitic host to their larvae before they can turn into another little mussel. And the way they do that to attract the fish to be the host to their little larvae is with lures. Some of them have lures that look like little fish and so forth. The lilliput mussel has I've got a movie of it, but these are wiggling like two red worms right on the bottom of the creek to attract a fish to come up there. And the lilliput is only about 1.5 inches long as an adult. It's a real small mussel. And this was in a drainage ditch over in Pope County, of all places. There's a website. If you Googled my name, you might come up to it. It's over at Southwest Missouri State, which they just call it Missouri State University now, where they really have the big emphasis on freshwater mussels. And they did have, I gave them this video of this, and you can see it actually wiggling if you can get online, and if it's still on there. Last time I looked, it was still on their website. Well, Cretaceous Hills, this is the area where the Shawnee Forest has got a big project going. This slideshow is not specifically to that project, but it'll cover some of the same general area. But a lot of seep springs in there, where the Cretaceous deposits are sand and gravel, and then there's gravel on top of that, and all of that water just seeps through that, and then it hits either stone or clay, and then comes out in the form of a spring. Now this is one of those springs, and it's the only one, and my master's study was on the vegetation of these seep springs in the Cretaceous Hills. And so this is the only one I found any marsh fern in. This is marsh fern, which is common in the prairie marshes up central Illinois and northern Illinois. But this is the only place I've seen it here. I did see one once in a slough over on the Mississippi River floodplain. So, but I took this picture because of a rare dragonfly. Does anybody see the dragonfly in that picture? Sitting on that tree. The gray petal tail is a living fossil. This dragonfly, there are fossils of it 100 million years old, way before the dinosaurs went extinct. And they're so tame. All our other dragonflies they're leery. This one will come up and land right on you. And I'm sure it used to land on the dinosaurs. And I was out there taking its picture, and one landed right on my shoulder right there, and I couldn't get a picture of him. But I just thought, I got something landing on me that used to land on dinosaurs. And quite interesting. Here's one of I think this would be one of the best ornamental ferns to plant, is cinnamon fern. It's big and it's attractive. The World Begonia orchid, not the small world, which has gone extinct, but the regular World Begonia orchid. There are 3 stands of it known in the state, and they're all along this one hillside. It's in this Cretaceous Hills management unit that we're talking about down there. And there are 2 of these 2 springs that have this in all of southern Illinois that we know. And one of them is in this area, another one is, there's 2 different separated units of these that have my study area. And the other population's down in a different spring. And this is Bartonia, a little gentian of all things. Doesn't look like a gentian. Doesn't have any leaves. It has little bitty. It has enough chlorophyll in its stem that does its photosynthesis that way. Very peculiar little plant. And here's the pink milkwort. Same thing. No leaves. It photosynthesizes through the chlorophyll in its stems. And here's the fairy wand. That last one, like the gravel knob, real dry gravel knob with no soil hardly. And the New York fern, the only New York fern I think that native New York fern left in Illinois is in this Cretaceous Hills area. And it's so neat. It has the little pinnules just keep getting smaller and smaller as you go down until they're just little bitty things an inch long at the bottom. Blue hearts is in the barrens. The barrens plants over there are interesting. Here's one of the picture of one of the barrens area. Here's this little dwarf prairie willow in there. Here's the white or cream gentian that was in that Barrens. I think you could probably get that from horticulture magazines, and it'd be a good one in a prairie planting here in southern Illinois. It may or may not still survive. Beard grass, just a plant that used to occur there. We're hoping if the Forest Service starts burning large landscape areas, that we'll find this plant. I think it might still be there. It just died out because of lack of fire. And it's really one of the things that this new management might bring back. Fraser's loosestrife is just an enigma. I don't know. Nobody seems to know what happened to this plant. We had it here at Burke Branch. We had it at Lush Creek Canyon. They had it in West Kentucky, over in Land Between the Lakes, and they just all died out. All of them that are left now are along some rivers in the foothills of the Appalachians in South Carolina, and nobody seems to know why. So it's really one of those strange things. And the great chickweed, which is, if you ever go to the Smokies in the spring, it's everywhere over there. About the only place that's native in Illinois is just a little bitty corner of the east end of the Shawnee Hills. And this is in Burke Branch, which has got some bedrock in it too. And Stenonthium gramineum, the grass leaf lily. Those would be good. The grass leaf lily would be good in a way in planting, except it doesn't seem like it flowers but about once every 20 years. But maybe if you had it in the garden, you could get it to flower every year. I don't know. And then the black cohosh. There are several of these in the mountains. This was the one that only occurs west of the Alleghenies. It's a limestone-dependent species. Semicifuga rubifolia. Okay, that's the end of the natural divisions part of this. I think maybe we ought to just go ahead. I'm just going to run through the rest of these real quick. This is turning out. New Jersey tea is a common little shrub in southern Illinois. It's not indicative of any division or the other. I think it'd make a great horticultural plant. Nine bark. A lot of people don't know that nine bark grows here in southern Illinois. There's a little creek called Copperas Branch of Lush Creek, about 1.5 miles southeast of Eddyville, Illinois, and all the way down to Lush Creek. This is all along it. It's just common in there. Aeroviburnum, it's got beautiful leaves and flowers. This is on the north-facing ledges at Bellsmith Springs and Lush Creek Canyon. It's kind of a relic. But I think you could probably buy this in the horticulture trade too, and you wouldn't have to make cuttings of your own to get that. Another interesting plant is the native mock orange. You can just barely see the flowers of it here. This is the Ohio River. The story of finding this, rediscovering this, I wrote an article in Aerugenia about this too, because a botanist came here from Harvard collecting woody plants for the Arboretum out in Boston or Cambridge, and he found this plant. He was a great botanist, Hill, E.J. Hill, and botanist after botanist came looking for it, and I did too. And everybody would look up along the high bluffs, which is where it grows. It grows right along the Cumberland River, just across the river from here, but up on river bluffs. And I got the copy of the actual original publication by this guy, and he basically said it's just above the high water mark of the river. It was on the other side. There was a railroad track. Everybody was walking the railroad looking this way. I walked out there and looked the other way, and there it was. Everybody just walked by it for years. And it's got a beautiful flower. It has not too many of these plants have 4 petals like this one has. The mock oranges, there are a lot of mock oranges in the trade for ornamental planting. The one that we had is Philadelphia verrucosus. And then shadbush, our earliest flowering shrub down here in southern Illinois. Wisteria, Grows close to the river, so right along the river is the best place to see it. Looks a lot like the Chinese wisteria. Carolina buckthorn has these real big shiny, the leaves have this shiny on top of them, and the colored berries, really ornamental. And if you ever cut it and look at the wood is yellow. You think, well, that's yellow wood, but it's not, of course. And false indigo, I don't know how attractive, the flowers up close are pretty, but I don't know how it would do in a planting. But it doesn't get but about 8 or 10 feet high at the most. Bittersweet, everybody knows that. Trumpet creeper is another bignonia. I think this does real good. In our yard, we had put some posts up and started trumpet creeper on it, and it got to the top and there was no place it could go. We kept trimming the tops out, and it looks like a little tree now. It's just covered with blossoms every year. It's really great. And the catalpa, or cigar tree, which is native. You can see the native ones right along the trail at Heron Pond. And of course, flowering dogwood. I don't think anybody's ever tried to develop a horticultural variety of that, but from Williams Hill, which is the highest point in southern Illinois, there's a road goes off to the east, and there used to be some pinkish red flowering dogwoods just right along the road there. I took pictures of the individual flowers, but someone might start, some of that from a cutting or something. It's not as red as the one that's in the regular horticulture trade, but there are some around. I'm sure that's probably not the only ones either, the one that on Williams Hill. But there's dogwood. And then Styrax americana. This one is in the edge of a cypress swamp. Big berries. Here's what the flowers look like, little snowbells. Some people call it snowbell bush too. Very attractive, and they'll bloom when they're about 5 or 6 feet tall. I would recommend it strongly I think it would do all right just right in somebody's yard. I don't think you'd have to keep it especially wet even necessarily. Oh, and then the red buckeye, I forgot I already had that in there, and the same with the pink azalea. We have a lot of Michigan lilies here, and there's some bigger ones that Muhlenbrock calls superb lily too. They just don't flower much because they have to be out in full sun to flower. Most of them are living in woods. And so, but you can get those and plant them out in a sunny spot. I think they bloom like this every year, and they're really pretty spectacular. And the spider lily, I think maybe I already had that in there. Fragrant water lily is scattered around Illinois. For some reason in Sugar Creek, right along the bike trail, where the bike trail going north from Tunnel Hill crosses Sugar Creek, this is growing right in the creek there. And Johnson County is listed as one of the 5 or 6 counties in the state where it's known. So it's really kind of a good one for your wetland plantings. And then lotus, Merrimack Lake's full of that. And cactus, prickly pear cactus. I didn't show that when I showed the sandstone glades a while ago. And that's another good plant for your rock garden. This brown-eyed Susan, this is in that Azotus field, the place I was telling you about, where I got this picture. I doubt if it's there anymore. It's 15 or 20 years ago, but I thought it was really a neat form of a regular plant that's usually just yellow flowered. And wild hyacinth, of course, Camasius aloes, that's a real good one to plant, and thank goodness I'm giving out. Any questions? All righty.